Radio check, anybody copy? Hello, everyone. I'm Alice Kuniglen, and this is episode 3 of Alaska Natives on the Frontline, a special series of Coffee Quaq that focuses on climate change in Utqiaġvik, Alaska, brought to you by a grant from the Pulitzer Center through the Connected Coastlines program. Alaska Natives on the Frontline is a special series of Coffee Quaq highlighting the adaptability and resilience of the Iñupiat in the face of climate change, done in partnership with journalist Jenna Kunze. We traveled up to Utqiaġvik earlier this year at the peak of winter when the sun had just returned back to the Arctic and interviewed residents about the various aspects of how Iñupiat life has changed, but also how it has remained the same. This episode features Iñupiaq Studies teacher Jerica Aamodt and Iñupiaq Studies coordinator Katie Roseberry at Iḻisaġvik College. Iḻisaġvik translates to a place to learn. Operated by the North Slope Borough, it is the only tribal college in Alaska and is the northernmost accredited community college in the United States. Jenna and I sat down with Jerica and Katie on the Iḻisaġvik campus in a vacant classroom.
You know how our grandparents or great-grandparents have gone through the boarding school era? So education has changed. So here we have Iḻisaġvik. While many of those cultural traditions were stripped from our people or taken away, they were shunned to even, they were told not to practice. But here we have Iḻisaġvik and Iñupiaq Studies department that we're here to reinstill that knowledge into our students, into people who attend our classes or workshops. We are here to teach them, reteach them those types of traditions. So our education has definitely changed in that way, using this space to provide those opportunities for our students. Pagalrifsi uvlulota uvanga Niayuq Utqiaġvik mi urunga savaktunga Iḻisaġvik mi Iḻisaġvik mi. Hello everybody, my name is Jerica Aamodt. My Iñupiaq name is Niayuq. I am from Utqiaġvik. I work at Iḻisaġvik as the assistant professor in Iñupiaq Studies.
Uvlulota uvanga Katie Roseberry Iñupiaq Sinira Qaggun Utqiaġvik mi urunga Savaktunga Iḻisaġvik mi Iñupiaq Studies mi. Hi everybody, my name is Katie Roseberry. My Iñupiaq name is Qaggun. I grew up in Utqiaġvik and I work at Iḻisaġvik College as the Iñupiaq Studies coordinator.
And can you guys tell us a little bit about your upbringing and your connection to Utqiaġvik?
I grew up in Utqiaġvik my whole life. My mom is Iñupiaq from this region. She grew up here and also in the village of Utqiaġvik. My father is not from here, so grew up here with my mom and my dad. My grandmother and grandfather, they have lived in Utqiaġvik. My grandmother still lives there, so she's originally from Utqiaġvik, but I would occasionally go there and grew up going there in the summertime. I grew up going camping with my aunts and uncles out on the land, out at Iḻisaġvik, which is Cape Simpson. Yeah, so I went to school here my whole life. Right after high school, I attended University of Alaska Fairbanks. And at the same time, I would go back and forth. I came to Iḻisaġvik to get my Iñupiaq Studies associates. And then I went back to UAF. And then I got my master's from UAF as well. So I was physically at UAF for maybe a couple of years, and then I came here and did my classes via distance.
Oh, okay.
So I was working in Utqiaġvik and going to school full-time and being a mother full-time.
Wow.
So I was born in Oklahoma. We didn't move up here until I was in about 2nd or 3rd grade. We've been here pretty much ever since, although for a while, maybe 1 year, we lived in Iñupiaq Pass and then moved back here, and we've been here since. Jerica and I grew up together, so we were always playing outside on the tundra, kind of just discovering what was out there, the types of animals that were around. I guess just discovering the land around us. We were so curious. We were always just like looking around like, what's in here? Look at all these little fish.
Yeah.
What are they? I pretty much grew up here. Since elementary school, I finished high school here and then also went to UAF. Stayed there for about 7 years before moving to Anchorage, and then finally back here after I got my bachelor's degree in biology. So that was just recently. I came back, I think, 2017.
Okay. And then, so what do you guys do here at Iḻisaġvik?
We'll just forever look at each
other. So I've worked at Iḻisaġvik in the Iñupiaq Studies department for 7 years. I was originally the coordinator. Beginning this fall, I am now the Iñupiaq Studies assistant professor, faculty member.
Do you teach then?
Yes.
What do you teach?
So I teach Iñupiaq Studies classes this semester, Inuit storytelling, Iñupiaq language. I've taught some sewing, traditional and contemporary native food preparation, among other classes.
Okay, so my job title is Iñupiaq Studies Coordinator. I've been in this position for about going on 6 months now, so not too long, but long enough to kind of figure it out. I do a little bit of teaching, so I've helped Jerica teach some of the smaller classes and the contemporary and traditional native food prep class. I also facilitate activities within the community and work with our cooperative extension department to provide either language or cultural type workshops.
I also do cultural summer camps. So in the summertime, we will pick a village, we'll travel to the village, we'll go camping there or spend time in the village with guides, and they will show us the land. They'll show us, the different plants and take our students camping and hunting, and they'll learn about the history, the culture, participate in local events or activities.
What does the Iñupiaq food prep class look like, or what do you do in that class?
So I first started teaching it 4 years ago. So it was kind of like a tester back then. We like to bring in, whole foods like native foods, caribou, whale, not a whole whale, but parts of the whale, beluga, plants, geese, ducks, anything that is available to us that people donate or that other people, bring in for us. And we teach our students how to make them traditionally and then also contemporary style. So, for example, we boiled our beluga into makdaq, and then that was, our traditional way of serving it, preparing it. And then we did a modern chowder. So we added salmon, beluga, and then had our vegetables and different types of ingredients. So we just blend the two into our classes.
And then the language class that you teach, is it an introductory, intermediary, what level?
So I am teaching 3 different language classes this semester. The first one is like foundation, so it's like the very basic pronunciation, alphabet, and then we have elementary 1, which is kind of taking it a step further with the vocabulary that they learned, and then making sentences. And then we have elementary 2, which is even a step further, where they're beginning to speak more, conversate more, and able to say speeches. So they're able to, talk.
Wow. That's cool. I know my parents learned to speak Iñupiaq here at Iḻisaġvik. I mean, they knew a little bit, obviously, from our grandparents, but they weren't taught how to speak it fluently, so they learned to do that here. Well, I don't want to say completely, but, it really helped them to understand, speak it themselves. I think that they were pretty good about comprehension, like they can hear it and understand what elders were saying, but they would never be able to talk back, is what they said. But once they started classes here, and that was probably the 90s maybe. And then so for you, Katie, I was working with you for that workshop thing, or the cultural hour. Is that your job? What you do is to put those together every week?
Yeah, so the cultural hour is kind of like a workshop type thing, meant for staff, students, and faculty members. And then we open it up to the community as well if anybody feels like they want to come in and join us. And the content varies. Sometimes we'll do arts and crafts type activities, language lessons, song and dance, or even just cutting up native food in Iñupiaq.
Cool.
So that we just recently, this is our first semester teaching it as a class, and that's why we had so many people online.
Oh, I get it.
So it's our tester, and hopefully it goes well. And if it does, hopefully we'll continue it as a class for the future.
That's cool, because I could think about, when I grew up too, my mom, she would cut up uruks and stuff, and that's how we would kind of learn how to do it. But maybe some people don't have that maybe guidance all the time, or, and they've got to go out and find someone to do that with, or to malik, to go out hunting, that's cool.
I think what you just said, it kind of is the reason why we wanted to do these type of classes. I've had students, high school students, dual credit students, they'll say, I don't feel Iñupiaq enough to, participate in my culture, to even eat my native food or to speak the language. And so as we're teaching, we're giving them that space, that safe space, so that they have that opportunity to, learn how to, cut mukduk. I've had a student, they said when they first started cutting beluga, they were so up, like they were scolded because they did it the wrong way. And so she said she hasn't picked it back up until that class. And so she said it felt really good for her to finally do that again. And I've had students who've never been camping before, or traveled to the villages. And so for them to be able to connect to even their parents or their grandparents' land made them feel whole. Even sewing, I know there's a lot of sewing in our community, but sometimes they don't have patterns or don't have the knowledge of how to, put something together from start to finish. And so they're able to do that. It's just, it's getting their feet wet, these classes, just getting them introduced to things like sewing or cooking or language. So it's just getting their feet wet into the language and to the culture.
Jerica, were some of these classes designed specifically by you?
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds that way.
Yeah, well, I've been here for, 7 years, like I said. Yeah. So I was the coordinator, and it was kind of hard to take the baton, from Fanny Ukbik. Many of you know Fanny Ukbik. So she was in charge of this department. So she designed it. She taught the classes. And so I was kind of under her wings, and it was kind of hard for me because I'm not fluent in the language. So, now I teach it, but she helped mold me, mentor me into this position. And now that, I've kind of, been here for a while, I'm like, maybe I could add some classes that I think is important, classes that I want to teach or that I can teach, or
bringing people in to teach their skill.
So we spoke a little bit about the classes.